As a rule, in a good peace researcher, the PhD field is no longer visible. There are often 4 stages on this road. Now, we will look at the 4 stages. But why is the PhD field no longer visible? That's because peace studies, peace education is a relatively new area, and lots of stuff needs to be developed. Lots of research needs to go into this before we can talk about having PhDs in peace education or peace studies or conflict management and those kinds of areas. So let's look at what these 4 stages are. The first one is a multidisciplinary stage. Now, in a university that offers lots of different programs, even in some colleges that offer lots of different programs, or at a conference that brings about people from different disciplines and areas, these universities or conferences invite specialists from several disciplines to contribute to peace studies from their angle. The way an economist looks at peace is different from the way a sociologist looks at peace, is different from the way a psychologist looks at peace, and therefore, if you have peace studies, it must be multidisciplinary. We must pick the various disciplines connected in some way with peace and see how these particular disciplines look at peace from their point of contact in terms of the content that they try to teach. Each discipline will have its own angle to share, and that is what would make peace studies a richer discipline when different areas are covered through experts in those particular areas. So that's one, the first stage, multidisciplinary. The second is people or disciplines who never meet. And that's because our universities and colleges are set up in departments, at most faculties, and even departments within faculties do not necessarily intermix, do not necessarily talk with one another. If I'm a biology person or a psychology person or an economics person, I work within that discipline, within that department only. And so the way these universities and colleges are structured prevents this kind of multidisciplinary interaction to happen. And strongly today also because these individual fields or disciplines are competing for funding, are competing for space, are competing for infrastructure within the university or the college, and therefore do not want to intermix with one another. But if multidisciplinary factors are to be considered, we will have to take down these walls. We will have to interact with disciplines other than our own. Next is the interdisciplinary stage. This, again, at a university or a conference, encourages dialogue among approaches, an obvious method being to address the same event or phase in history or the same problem. So we have an issue. Now, an issue or a problem can be looked at from different perspectives. And if we want that to happen, we will then have to go interdisciplinary. Everything cannot be addressed by literature. Everything cannot be addressed by the humanities. Everything cannot be addressed by the social sciences. So how do you bring about individuals to come and sit together, talk about a particular issue or problem from their perspective? You need to go interdisciplinary, and that would require at least 2 departments coming together and sharing the focus on an issue or problem. Cross-disciplinary is the third stage, and this dialogue goes further into mutual learning. Cross-disciplinary now, individuals want to learn from one discipline and another. So I share my perspective, the other discipline shares my perspective, but it doesn't stop at sharing. We want mutual learning to happen and therefore make peace studies a richer discipline to work with and focus on. A psychologist, for example, may pick up a sociological hypothesis about status disequilibrium, and any society has that. everybody in a particular society or community are not necessarily on the same socioeconomic status. So there is status disequilibrium, there is imbalance. And so a sociological perspective may be, is education responsible for it? Better education, does that make a difference? Low power, if I'm in the lower hierarchy versus the upper hierarchy, does it make a difference? And as aggression productive, and explore the psychology behind all this. And therefore, the psychologist's perspective and a sociologist's perspective on the same issue can be shared. One can learn from the other in mutually acceptable ways. A sociologist would like to look at the same issue from a sociological, cognitive consonance as peace of mind, because what a sociologist looks at is peace in society. So if the mind is at rest, if the mind is at peace, does that peace consonance, does that mind relaxation help in any way resolve a particular issue? So looking at the different perspectives makes it rather important to see things from multiple perspectives, come up to a common ground, and then say, this is what will work, and this is how peace can be promoted.